the breakup of the United Kingdom.
Is India really independent? Bear with me and hear me out. Are you and I independent? Well, I don't think so. And what I'm about to share with you tonight is a rather unpopular opinion. But I need to say it out loud to myself and to all of you. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, and I think in some ways my country and I are still living in the shackles of the English rule.
In one such judgment, in the UK withdrawal from the European Union Legal Continuity Scotland Bill, it refers to Section 28 of the Scotland Act and states that notwithstanding the conferral of legislative authority on the Scottish Parliament, the UK Parliament remains sovereign.
And you can see how many more now there are than there was a few years ago. So I think that's why they think when the floodgates open with Romanians and Bulgarians, they will come out here.
And what is it you worry will happen?
There'll be more of them than us.
Language of England. This is the map of India. 28 states, 8 union territories, each with at least 2 Indian languages. India has 19,569 mother tongues. 121 of these are spoken by 10,000 people or more. The number of official languages in India is 22.
More of them than us. But just who is us in Redcar and Cleveland? This area has more British-born people living in it than anywhere else in England. Despite this, there are many people who are deeply worried about immigrants. As it stands currently, there wasn't a Bulgarian or Romanian in sight. In neighbouring Middlesbrough, however, it's a different story.
All these numbers, and independent India wants to master one language, the language of our invaders. What was India's freedom struggle all about?
Basically, they call us Pakis. So then I said, I'm not a Paki, so I'm from Sri Lanka. So they basically what they said, because of the color, they use this word.
Some say the harsh economic climate is hardening people's views towards migrants.
Finally, allow your country to sink into a dictatorship. Appointing yoke-haired hate-weeble Boris Johnson as Prime Minister to ride roughshod over our democratic norms sends a clear message to the world that we have lost our mind. EU immigration is tumbling.
Unemployment remains high here, especially among the young. There are 16 job seekers for every vacancy. Here, the growing community of Romanians are increasingly frustrated at the way they're being portrayed.
But you rightly saw it for what it was. A huge beacon giving away our location to the rest of the world. It called out to people across the globe, hey, look at us.
We failed to provide a vision of society to which they feel they want to belong. We've even tolerated these segregated communities behaving in ways that run completely counter to our values.
Britain is spectacular, talented, inclusive, fun, proud and brimming with joy. Why not visit us, make lives here, invest, trade with us?
Is it the case that lots of Romanians are getting ready to come here?
No, I don't think so. No. Who wants to come here comes already.
And official figures showed a rise in net migration.
Despite the criticism, the Boris Johnson government remains unrelenting.
As levels of immigration to this country rise inexorably to ever greater heights, it is tempting to assume that this is due to malevolent intention on the part of some criminal masterminds who are determined to destroy European civilization and culture.
So let's start in a pre-World War II era. So if we start back in 1905 with the Aliens Act of 1905, this was the first ever immigration act in the UK. It was created as a result of the perceived threat from Jewish immigration to the United Kingdom. The act aimed to prevent Britain from undesirable immigrants while encouraging immigration viewed as economically and culturally beneficial to Britain.
Such anxieties are perfectly understandable.
Then the next important act was the British Nationality and Status of Aliens Act in 1914. After the outbreak of World War I, there was the feeling of germophobia in the country. And this led to legislation being created to prohibit aliens from landing in the UK and to impose restrictions on this group of people on entry into the UK. Another important element of it was to deport any alien seen as a threat to Britain. It was also meant to grant officers of the powers to arrest, detain, and search aliens to tackle any matters which appear necessary or expedient in a view of the safety of the realm. And German-owned businesses could be confiscated, and those deemed from enemy aliens could be interned. After the German invasion of Belgium, protection was given to Belgian refugees who sought shelter in Britain. But most of this act was really targeted towards Germans at the time.
Having our own identity, what defines our identity more than our mother tongue? If India is independent, why have we not let our mother tongues flourish? Why are we shy of speaking Indian languages? Why have they become a sign of backwardness? If someone speaks in Hindi, Tamil, Odia, Bangla or Assamese, he or she is seen as less qualified.
For this reason, we often construct what seem to us reasonable explanations which show how something bad in our lives has come about.
There could not be a better example of British hypocrisy. Much like the United States, it claims to be the torch-bearer of diversity, a civilized society which believes in inclusion. Its actions, however, tell a very different story.
Because there is nothing more terrifying than truly random and inexplicable illness, poverty and death.
The Aliens Act of 1919, people were now required to present documentation upon arrival in the UK, and this led to standardized passports being introduced in 1920. All aliens over the age of 18 were required to register with the police also at this time. Then we can turn to 1948 and the British Nationality Act. And here, due to the growing independence of former colonies like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Pakistan, the UK had to redefine who was allowed to enter the UK.
When the same person speaks in English, his or her chance in standing improve. Independent India has put the language of our colonizers on a pedestal. English is a socio-economic marker, the language you must know if you want to be successful in India.
This British Nationality Act introduced a new category of citizen. So it was citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, which was defined as every person born within the United Kingdom and the colonies. And here, of course, you can see where a lot of the colonies were, which is also now the Commonwealth.
It makes us feel utterly helpless, and it strikes at our view of the universe as a place where our behaviour shapes what happens to us. This principle may be seen at work when we struggle to make sense of the fact that Britain is changing rapidly from a pleasant, largely law-abiding and agreeable country in which to live into somewhere which resembles a third world nation. Surely somebody must have devised a plan for such a disaster. It can't just have happened by accident.
And I have research to back this up. In 1973, a researcher studied Native American students in Mexico. She found those who were taught in their native language early on and then transitioned to Spanish outperformed their peers who were taught only in Spanish. Similar research was carried out in Honduras, Iran and Togo. The result was the same. When a child is taught in a language she speaks at home, her test scores shoot up. Here is another popular notion. English language equals to success. If you want to do well, you must know English. Have you ever wondered how Japan, Germany, or for that matter even China, have made it to the top 5 economies of the world?
For this reason, a lot of people who are opposed to immigration gravitate towards those with simple explanations which blame some group of people or even specified individuals for what's going on.
Most of the people there do not speak English.
The problem then is their frustration and anger are wasted on targets like Barbara Specter or Israel, while meanwhile the real causes of the situation are ignored. In other words, fretting about imaginary conspiracies actually makes it more likely that immigration will continue to rise because the real causes are not being addressed.
In 1868, Max Muller, the famous Indologist, wrote a letter to the Duke of Argyll. He was the then Secretary of State of India, and these words are from Mueller's letter. I'm quoting, "India has been conquered once, but India must be conquered again, and the second conquest should be a conquest by education."
70 years ago, people tended to stay in the country in which they were born and never leave it throughout the whole course of their lives. This was as true of Britain as it was of Nigeria or Iraq. People in Britain talked of abroad or foreign countries with a good deal of suspicion, and only the wealthy would ever think of travelling out of the country for a holiday.
I know that for a fact. And I think there's a fear as well that, say one day England won't be English people here. It'll be all foreigners.
Therefore, in the eyes of the law, the UK Parliament simply acts as a sovereign body, and the precedence it sets in doing so makes it sovereign, according to court rulings.